council to order Monday, April 11th, 2022. It's a special budget meeting. Approval of the agenda, please. Councillor Norbury.
Thank you, Mayor Bertrand, that the Monday, April 11th, 2022 special budget council meeting agenda be adopted as presented.
Seconder, Councillor Majinski. All in favor? Opposed? Any opposed on the phone? Carried, thank you. Approval of the agenda. Recommendation, new business, 3.1, 2022 operational budget. Report from the Chief Financial Officer dated April 11th, 2022. Present to Council the 2022 draft operational budget, 2022 to 2026 financial plan. I'd like to move for discussion. Seconder, Councillor Majinski. All in favor? Opposed? Carried, thank you. Ms. Torval, care for an introduction, please?
Yes, thank you, Mayor and Council. So tonight we have before you the 2022 draft operational budget and the 2022-2026 financial plan. You will also see included in your package is a summary of the 2022 budget revenue increases and decreases compared to the 2021 budget based on functions, service areas, etc. So this is the information that is being provided tonight, and we're sure there's questions, and so we're going to give it back to you for so Mr. can answer questions and staff if need be.
Certainly, thank you. Council, we'll start with questions. Councillor Norbury.
Thank you, Mayor Bertrand. So I just have a first overall.
Thank you for reminding me.
I just have a general overall question of the budget, looking for clarification. So our anticipated revenues for 2022 are $22,393,211, and our expenditures total $21,453,411. Is that correct?
Ms. Torval.
Ms. Taggarty? So I think probably you're asking a question which I need to give you the answer on. So because the summary sheet that you have with the expenses is probably different to the one on here, which is that what you're asking? The draft budget, sorry. So yeah, for 2022, the revenue is 22,392,211. And the operating expense is 16,636,277.
Councillor Norbury.
Thank you. And to follow up, the reason why where I came up with the 21 is I included our non-reporting.
Oh, non-reporting, yes.
Yeah.
So I don't think.
So we take the operational budget, we add the non-reporting, and that's
Yes.
where our outgoing is. So
Yeah.
my math should be pretty close. I'm a librarian, not a mathematician like my wife, but okay. So leaves us 917,000-ish in the black. Correct.
Ms. Torval.
Ms. Taggarty? So as we stand at the moment, I don't have a balanced budget. I was explaining to Mayor earlier, I do need to come back because we need some more funding for capital. So I do need to bring that back. And then obviously I've added in, recently we had the grant and aids. I've added in some museum repairs and some other things that had gone through on council, but I don't have a balanced budget at the moment. So yeah, I will need to bring that back. So council will need to give me direction if there is a tax increase, or we might have to use some reserves for capital spending.
Okay. And so, is there any provincial numbers that you're still waiting for?
I'm still waiting for the tax.
School tax.
That's
Okay.
all. But I have, we received regional district and the regional hospital.
Right, yeah, saw those, okay, thank you. Any other questions? So I just wanted to, I couldn't remember this acronym, so I wanted to make everyone aware of the RFFE, Reserve for Future Expenditure.
Correct.
Is that what we're calling the general reserve, or is that a carryover reserve?
So I think we have two RFFE reserves. I think we have a general, and then we have an airport reserve as well.
Okay. Okay, thank you. Any other questions, comments? I do want to say I noticed reading more accurate forecast multiple times in your report. Very much appreciate that. I think using the actuals from the previous year to forecast in the future is a good way of doing that. So thank you very much for that. Doesn't seem like there's too many questions here. Councillor Howe, did you have any questions?
Yeah, I got lots. I got a good hour's worth here, so I just wait until everybody else was done.
Yeah. Okay. Go ahead with a couple there if you like.
Okay, I'll just start with the first one now. I couldn't quite hear everything Councillor Norbury was saying, but at the end of the day, the way I was looking at it, that we're about $500,000 short at this point, not in the black, we're in the red. Would you care to comment on that?
Ms. Torval?
Ms. Taggarty?
Yeah, indeed, you are correct, Councillor Howe. I don't have a balanced budget at the moment because, yeah, we do need to fund the rest of our capital. And so, yeah, you are correct. Let's bring that back.
So is he correct around $500,000 at this point?
There is, we do get funding from the PRA. So I have within the budget, I have included the whole amount for the PRA. Part of that is part of it is going to capital, and some of it is funding our operational now. So council needs to decide if they want to use that PRA funding for operational. And I think we have to follow the rules, obviously, of the PRA funding.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, I believe it's 80%
yes,
needs to go to capital.
that's correct. So yeah.
And are we close to that ratio at this point?
We were when we had, obviously we had the childcare grant in there, but I've had to now remove that.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I think we're pretty close. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. So I guess the question then would be to whether or not council wants to use that other 20% for operational or continue that to capital. Is it available for capital at 100%?
That I'd have to take back to the PRA funding. When I first joined the district, I was under the understanding it was quite easy to kind of move the funding around. But this year, when I was doing my reporting on 2021 funding, the administrator that I spoke to said we have to follow a plan, and I understand a plan was brought to council, a 5-year plan. So I feel I need to bring that plan back, because if we're going to alter it, we really do need to get permission from the PRA.
PRA. Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Follow up, Councillor Howe?
Yeah, and I mean, like, you know, Lisa, we're aware that, you know, we've got to look at tax rates and everything like that as well, and that it's not a balanced budget at this point, and that's fine. This is just for the initial discussions of council to start having some idea of all of our promises and the amount of money that we're spending. You know, we're already at a position right now where we're, you know, about $500,000 short, and that has to be made up in, you know, things that you were talking about, or an increase in taxes or a decrease in spending. And so just we're, like I say, trying to get this, wrap our heads around a little bit about where we are at this point And this to me is our first crack at seeing where we are in the ballpark. That's my first question. The second question I have is, can you give us a little bit of background around the revenue and costs with Monkman Park? So the revenue in Monkman Park is recorded on page 3. It's about $105,000. And the cost is on page 40 and 41, which balances out. Is that a coincidence, or is that the way that the contract works on the Monkman Park revenue?
Ms. Torval?
Integrity?
Through the matter, so I know this year I've tried to look at actuals and forecasts more accurate, and I think with that one, if I remember, it was very low, which I mean maybe during COVID, the increases are there. I'm trying to remember then how we pay back, because the contractor takes a cut of the revenue. So we're thinking 80-20. 80 to. Okay. So Mr. Torrance informed me it's 80. The contractor keeps 80% of it, and then we get a 20% of the revenue.
Okay. Follow-up, Councillor?
Yeah, so and that makes sense, because it looks like contracted services is just north of $80,000 on $105,000 brought in. It's just our 20% appears to go just to cover everything else. Like we are, for instance, we have wages, we have casual wages, benefits, and a few other things out at Monkman Park that just, I didn't realize that we paid the insurance and that we paid everything else. But at the end of the day, $105,000 comes in, $80,000 goes out to the contractor, and the rest of the money that comes in basically makes us break even by covering all other costs.
Ms. Torval?
Integrity. For the mayor to councillor Howe, yes, I would say that's correct.
Okay.
Okay. Councillor Nobre? Did you have a question?
Yes, Mayor Bertrand, I just had a question around recycling. And this, in regards to our, so that's on page 11.
Thank you.
I'm just curious on the change from the 164 to $316,000. I mean, I see it's coming in mostly in wages, and I'm just curious the rationale for that. We just have more people down there. Are we finding that with the addition of recycling, it's just costing us more? Just kind of curious about that.
Ms. Torval?
For the mayor to councillor Norbury, I think, obviously I only came here 10 months ago, but from what I can recall, I think there has been some changes down there. I think revenue is definitely higher on the recycling, but I feel like there was a new position in there, and it was needed. It was an operational thing. So yeah, I definitely think the expenses have gone up.
Okay, follow up. Any other questions, Council? Councillor Howe?
Yeah, revenue from recycling of used oil. Can you show us where that is recorded? Mr. Simcock came in and said that we would record, I think the number was, I've got it written down at my stall in council, but I thought the number was somewhere in the neighborhood of $100,000 he expected us to make in used oil sales. Do we have that recorded as revenue anywhere?
Ms. Torval?
Ms. Taggarty?
Through the mayor to councillor Howe, I have increased the revenues for recycling with that in mind. That being said, I do need a little bit more information from Director Simcock. So yeah, I do. As I put in a forecast, but I think I would like him to confirm if it needs to be inflated.
Okay. So we haven't actually recorded any oil recycling revenue in this budget at the moment?
I think there's room
for actuals?
I think there is room to increase that, but before I do need the real figure.
Right, okay. Follow up, Councillor?
Yeah, and exactly that. I mean, it would be interesting to make sure that we pull that portion out, because of the $500,000 we're looking to make up, if there is $100,000 in waste oil there, you know, there we go. Now we're down to, we need to find some way to come up with 400,000. Can I continue on with some more questions, and you can just shut me off whenever you want there, or what?
Yes, please.
When it comes to the amount of money that we're supposed to be putting away, we are have a policy in place to put away into reserves. Are we doing that this year?
Ms. Torval?
Through the Mayor to Councillor Howe, so for this year, and I explained to Mayor Bertrand earlier, I have stuck with the 2021, what we put away, which looking at our bylaws, we have a set amount that we're looking around the 5 to 10%. But I think that also I would want to bring that back with explaining what our surplus is, once I have that from our financial statements, which was very close, and with all the reserves, and that would help council decide on the capital funding, I think.
I agree.
Okay.
Follow up, Councillor?
Another question.
Please.
A few years ago, we used to have a parks budget, which was about $50,000 we used to put away per year for new parks, for the construction of new parks. We'd tear down old ones and build new ones. Do we have that recorded in our budget anywhere? Does that ring any bells for you, Ms. Taggarty?
Ms. Torval?
I don't have the financial statements on me. I would imagine that's probably listed as a reserve. But I'd have to come back to you, Councillor Howe.
Yeah, it was a 5-year plan thing, as well as like $50,000 per year going forward for 5 years. I don't know if other councillors remember that. I just would also be something that I would be curious that we could maybe look at to see if we could get answers on that one when you get an opportunity.
Certainly. Go ahead, Councillor Howe.
Next one?
Yep.
Hey, just give me a second here. On page 20 of 53, in the fleet general, we show a 2021 actual of 33,000, and then casual of 33 and casual. So this amount that we show here now, where we were budgeted for 161,000 in 2021, we spent $75,000. Why the increase to $287,000 in 2022 when we really only spent $200,000 less than that?
Ms. Torval?
Ms. Taggarty?
Mayor to Councillor Howe. So I was explaining this to Mayor Bertrand earlier. So with the wages, the way that we do the wages through Questica now, and I think we started last year. So we're budgeting where we think these items should be. So, and I think, so what you're seeing within fleet there, I think is you're seeing our new position, the fleet manager position.
Oh, okay. So so 2021 goes from 75,000 to 2022 goes to $287,000 with the addition of a fleet manager.
That's correct.
Okay.
And Ms. Torval, could Ms. Taggarty explain how the wages are being allocated to these accounts as well? Because I notice on a number of the accounts, the wages are at the top. They haven't been budgeted for 2021. They aren't being budgeted for 2022, but we are still allocating wages to those different accounts. And I'm just wondering why, or what the plan is, or what the thinking is on divvying out or using those wages in each account and in each department. And are we going to get to a point where we can budget for those wages in those accounts, or are we just going to lump sum them? Ms. Torval?
I'll have Ms. Taggarty respond.
Thank you.
To Mayor Bertrand and the rest of council, I think there's kind of been a little bit of a shift here, because I think it was decided that, Mayor and Council, you'd like to see where we're spending our money in our service areas. So I feel like we're in a recovery budget, and I feel like we need to have the trends showing on where we spend our money. So I think maybe in the past, well, I'm not sure if we did code things where they were supposed to go to, or I think we've encouraged departments to make sure that things, people's time is being recorded to where they're working. Someone's working in the park, someone's working for rec today, because then I think it enabled us to come back to council and say what each service area or department costs.
Mm-hmm.
So I think there is a shift. Now, looking at the figures, it must be hard for you all, because you're seeing where the budget is, but then you're seeing the actuals are kind of divvied up in all different areas. I'm trying to figure out an easy way. We've done our best within Questica to put an approximate amount for where we think people are going. Say for water and sewer is probably the easiest example. It's quite easy to budget for that because they only get coded to those areas. But for a worker that works and puts like 10 lines on their timesheet every day, it's hard then for us to budget that amount. But I think give me a few years of those budgets, I can then pull the budget into Questica more accurately.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's where you're seeing those. In total, our budget is this. I can guarantee I've been through that budget so many times with Diana Geese, and we've made sure we've accounted for every position.
Mm.
So it's just the totals this, they're not necessarily exactly where people are working.
Mm.
They're in their departments, but not in the individual functions.
Mm-hmm. And that's kind of what I noticed going through the budget here last few days was that we hadn't been budgeting wages in the 2021 budget. And that's where I've seen a lot of large discrepancies in the actuals and the forecasted numbers. It has to do with wages, and I'm not really sure if those 2021 budget numbers are accurate to a point because we're not including wages in them. So we are going to see those large variances because we're adding wages after the fact, kind of thing. Is that correct?
It's almost like we're shifting on how we account for them.
Yes.
We did it this way before, and now facilities is probably a good example.
Mm-hmm.
We're now trying to shift to being able to show town council where, money we spend on wages in those areas. But it's going to take a while to get the trend to actually put in an accurate budget.
Yeah, we're going to need a couple of years of actuals to really narrow in on our budget numbers and avoid those large variances. Right? Yeah. Okay. Councillor Howe?
Yeah, thanks, Lisa. Page 29 of 53. You're looking at last 5 digits, 17-213, has to do with the 2020 Willie sidewalk machine. So we have $65,000 in parts and $17,000 in contracted services. We just get a quick explanation of what that was for.
Ms. Torval?
Ms. Taggarty?
Through the mayor to Councillor Howe, we had an insurance claim on this piece of equipment. So there would have been a corresponding revenue coming back into the financial statements from the insurance company.
Follow up, Counselor?
Yeah, so is that from an accident claim, or is that from the equipment broke down?
Mr. Torval?
Councillor Howe, it was an accident claim.
Gotcha. I know which one now. I got it. Okay.
No hands up here, Counselor. Go ahead.
Keep going.
Yes, please.
Lisa, I've heard your explanation a couple of times on a couple of different things here, and this may have to do with that. But on page 36 of 53, there are certain things that we have spent on, but we have not budgeted on. For instance, town hall repairs and maintenance. Like, we have nothing in the 2022 budget for town hall repair and maintenance. Similarly, in Willow Hall repair and maintenance, we didn't have anything in the 2021 budget for it, but we spent, a couple $1,000s on it there. Are those things that you're addressing as you go through this?
Ms. Torval?
Through the mayor to Councillor Howe, yes, I am, and this is the one I don't have a full year actuals on. It was started before, I think maybe got half a year. So it's something, it will be work in progress for me. So I feel I have got some budget. I have got budget within the community centre, but I do want to kind of pull those budgets out and then obviously kind of divvy them up between these the facilities.
Follow up?
I want to make sure that we are putting stuff in our 2022 budget for these types of things. If we have to continue with repair and maintenance, so there has to be some money allotted for it, because we get back to that point where we've got to come up with more money now for our budget and tax increases. I just want to make sure that we are going to record that and get an opportunity to relook at the totals on this budget.
The mayor to Councillor Howe, yes, you're correct, Councillor Howe. I will be. This is one of the ones I ran out of time to kind of. I need some time spent on it, and then
Gotcha.
I feel there's money probably to pull out of the community centre to align with this, so I don't think it's going to be an increase as such.
Oh, excellent.
Any other questions, Council? Go ahead, Councillor Howe.
Yep, page 38, museum repair and maintenance. I imagine that's the same thing, but this would be, is that, are we allowed to discuss this?
The repairs to the museum
Yes.
are still enclosed, I believe. Is that correct, Ms. Torval?
Yes.
Thank you.
Sorry, I'll move on from that one then.
Go ahead.
Page 93, Visitor Information Center janitorial. We paid nearly $10,000 to do the janitorial in the Visitor Information Center. Do we think that's a possibility that we could stop doing this and allow those that are in there to do the janitorial? Is that something council might think would be worthwhile?
Not exactly sure. I'm not sure exactly what the lease states, Ms. Torval.
My first, mayor and council, my first instinct is this is a union thing, would be a union thing, so I don't know if there could be some agreement, because I believe the lease does say that, that's part of the district's responsibilities. Yeah, but it's something, I don't know what to say at this point.
Okay.
Fast answer to that one.
Yeah, okay.
Look into, I suppose.
Any other comments, Council? Okay. Go ahead, Councillor Howe.
Yeah, so I mean, there's janitorial full-time and part-time wages in there. So part-time, if I understand correctly, is somebody that gets called in. It's not always within the union. But I would think that would be something that, you know, we could possibly look into. That would be great. Lions Campground on page 40 of 53. Just out of curiosity, why we have wages and casual wages and benefits and all this stuff for the Lions campground.
Ms. Torval?
Isn't that ran by a contractor?
Yes. Ms. Tangerty?
With the Met, Councillor Howard, I probably have to take a look at that. I feel that maybe there was some repair or something done there, but I don't quite know off the top of my head.
Okay.
Councillor Majinski?
That might even be part of the erosion there, putting up the barricades and signage. Be part of that as well.
Yeah, last spring we did have the road washout, so the possible that wages were due to that, possibly. I've got a question, Ms. Torval, on the golf course restaurant. I've got page 41 of 53. We've budgeted last year 7,500, spent 550, budgeting 7,500 again. Just curious, I am aware that no one bid to operate the golf course, so just wondering what that budget amount is for. Ms. Torval.
Integrity?
Mayor to the Mayor, what's the rest? Yeah, I think that's just being the unknown with what was happening. It was just the timing of that and not knowing. So I think that's something we can
Pull.
Be more accurate with.
Okay. And as far as any budget towards the restaurant, it would be basic maintenance and janitorial, is that correct?
That's correct, yes.
Okay. So that's an area that we could revisit, I'm sure. Yeah, okay. All right. Councillor Howe?
Yeah, again on page 41 with golf course administration. So the telephone seems absolutely nuts to me that we're paying $5,600 a year for telephone costs, and then another $2,000 for cable costs. Can we have staff maybe look into that to see if that's something that can be fixed or looked at? I find our telephone costs in the DTR are astronomical. I don't think our telephone costs include cell phones or anything like that. They should be landline and landline and internet service, but don't those numbers seem high for a place that didn't have anybody in there as a contractor, so those phone services wouldn't have been used? Is this long distance calling or any explanation? And why would we have cable in that area? We had satellite in there previously, the way I understood it, that was paid for by the operator. So any explanation on that type of stuff?
Ms. Torval?
Mayor and Council, it is my understanding that this is being looked into. I don't know if Ms. Taggarty would like to comment further on that.
So Mayor and Council, I do know this is something being looked at by a member of staff. It was brought to their attention. So yeah, I think that there is opportunities for savings.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. That's kind of crazy. Unless everyone has a cell phone down there, but yeah. Good catch there, Councillor Howe. Your next one, please.
Councillor Norbury had been talking about something, and these might be the numbers that he was talking about. So if it's already been answered, that's okay. But in rec center administration, 424, 427, we're looking at hydro and natural gas charges. I mean, the natural gas charges are extremely higher than what we had budgeted for. And we're looking at somewhere in the neighborhood of almost $300,000 in utilities between hydro and natural gas. My question is twofold. Do we anticipate any savings with the heat recovery system we're putting in place in the arena? Is the first question.
Ms. Torval?
I wish Director Simcock was here, because we'd be able to explain the heat recovery and any savings there. I think we are, but I would definitely need clarification from him. Your notes from my report, we did under budget in gas quite significantly the previous year because there was a rate change from P&G, and our delivery fees are really high, which is why we're looking at the intervenor status. But yeah, it'd be something I'd have to come back to you after speaking with Director Simcock.
Follow-up, Councillor?
Yeah, and I mean, that's exactly it. When we listening to the residents of Tumbler Ridge complain about the cost that they're paying for natural gas, when we look at our increase in our budget from $100,000 in gas to $163,000, nearly a 65% increase in a building that we weren't hardly using in 2021. Sure, it has to stay heated, but there isn't that many bodies running around in there. I mean, that to me is astronomical, and it's almost something that I think we should put together some type of an idea of what this increase has cost the district of Tumbler Ridge to utilize when we're going in to talk to P&G about the price of gas. I mean, that's a 65% increase in one of our buildings is ridiculous. The second question that I had along with this is the carbon tax. How does the carbon tax that we pay, and we pay it on a slew of certain things within the DTR, how is the carbon tax credited back to the municipality? Do we get full carbon tax credits similar to somebody who is under the $55,000 threshold, or are municipalities exempt from the carbon tax credits?
Ms. Torval?
Ms. Haggerty.
Through the mayor to Councillor Howe, that's something I'd have to look at. I mean, I know we were getting the carrot grants. So I'm thinking if that was they were subsidising us with the carrot grant, but I feel that program has finished this year, which is why I haven't budgeted for it. And they're looking at another program. But yeah, it definitely is something before I answer, I don't want to give you the wrong information. I'd want to get some more information on that.
Thank you.
Okay, and that, you know, would be great that we could get some more information on where we are with carbon tax.
Okay.
Thank you. Any other questions, Council? I've got one on page 44 of 53. The total arena, special events, skate sharpening, ice maintenance. Budgeted 126 last year, actuals 36. Budgeting 142 this year. Is the actual so low because minor hockey wasn't able to have tournaments? Is that the reasoning, or why are we $90,000 below budget? Ms. Torval.
I think I'd probably have to look at this one. Like, I know the budget is like, we've put the budget in where I think it should be, which is obviously was the same as the year before. But I think I'd want to take a look and see why that's quite a lot less.
Yeah, just in my thoughts, overlooking it there, the only thing that I can explain it is they weren't able to hold tournaments last year or the year before, so I'm just wondering if that's the reason. I don't know if it's $90,000 reason, but yeah, it's a significant increase in from actuals anyway. Councillor Howe? Oh, you got one?
Just back to you.
Oh, sorry.
Would it be in the wages? I mean, the wages for the actual for 2021 was only 19,000, budget was 87. I'm assuming because there was no ice flooding happening.
On the weekends.
Well,
Yeah.
there was no hockey rink. The ice rink, I mean, the plant still ran, but the staff wasn't flooding the rink. Like, I mean, it's only 20 grand was the actuals, and they budgeted 87,000 for it.
Mm-hmm.
And if you look at 2022 budget, they're budgeting 91 grand for it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
That's a lot of the difference, including wages and benefits.
that's kind of what I was thinking, was no tournaments, less wages, less flooding of the ice, but just wanted to confirm. Councillor Howe?
Yeah, so page 49 of 53, again, on visitor information center telephone charges. for $15,000 in telephone charges to the Visitor Information Center. Any idea on why that is so high? Is that long distance charges that we're paying for the Geopark?
Ms. Torval?
Ms. Taggerty? Information on this?
To the mayor and Councillor Howe, I feel I need to get back to you on this one as well. Yeah, I feel that there is a reason why they have, their charges are high, and I just want to get that confirmation. Bring it back to council.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Howell?
Okay, fair enough. I think this is my last one here. On page 52 of 53, can you just explain to us a little bit about how the amortization on the sewer, so item number in sewer administration, item number 780, comes in on an actual of 162,000. When you take the 162,000 added to the 30,000, that's pretty close to our 2020 draft budget of 208,000. Because wages were so low. Is this another one of those Questica things that we have to work through?
Ms. Torval?
Ms. Taggerty?
To Councillor House, so the amortization is showing because that's what we do at year end. We don't actually budget for amortization, but it's included as part of our financial statements. So we could budget for amortization, but I would be putting the corresponding credits within, so it's kind of an in and out.
Right.
Follow up.
So maybe just explain the wages there again then. It says sewer administration wages full-time paperwork. 125,000 in the budget, spend 30,000 next year, 208,000.
Ms. Torval?
Ms. Taggerty?
To Councillor House, so the wages, the way it works, this is for the utility operators that are there. I think, to be honest with you, that paperwork should be removed from there. It should be more that's the sewer function. Again, the way we're budgeting is we're budgeting for the actual function, and then the operators in there will code as they go along, and you'll see them put the cost to which area they're working in. So if you like, that budget is kind of taking the hit for the whole of the main part of the sewer. Yeah.
Okay. And just one last one there, if I might.
Yeah, please.
We covered it in an email, Ms. Paggerty, but I'm still not quite sure or understand it. When it comes to the water fund, where we have parcel tax for about 237,000. This is on page 4 of 53. Sorry, guys, page 4 of 53. Water parcel tax is $237,000. So if I am not mistaken, that is the portion that is on every property that is in the district of Tumbler Ridge gets charged for a flat fee, and it comes out to $237,000. That's likely why it never changes in our budget. But the water usage fees of $458,000, is that also a flat fee on our taxes that the district collects, both of these flat fees?
Ms. Torval?
Ms. Taggerty?
The mayor to Councillor House. So we, as part of our sewer and water bylaw, we collect. So one of them I would say is a rate fee on our bills.
Rate.
The other one is the parcel tax. And I think that only came into effect a couple of years ago. So yeah, most municipalities collect that. So the rates, from what I understand, I don't think we charge anything for consumption here, but the rate stays the same. It's something that we could look at, obviously, increasing or in the future. But it's as per our water and sewer bylaw.
Yeah, and the reason I just pointed out is I just seem to always remember that number 237 and that could just be from the previous budget, or it could be from 5-6 years ago, for all I know, that if we are looking at, needing to increase some things with the cost of inflation, that might be a portion that has been overlooked for 4 or 5 years, has never changed the rate. So that's all I have at this.
Thank you. Council, any questions? Sorry, I'm just writing frantically here. So, Ms. Torval, I did pick up that sewer amortization that Councillor Howe has spoken about. Is there any other areas that we are adding amortization in afterwards, or not budgeting for, Ms. Torval?
Through to the net, yeah, we do, as part of our capital assets, our fixed assets, we do amortize all our fixed assets as per our fixed asset policy.
Okay, so are we not balancing it out or budgeting for it though?
No,
Just recording it?
Yeah, I think it's maybe a decision not to do it here. That means that it can be added. I did used to budget in a previous municipality that I worked for, just so that council could see amortization is something we could look at.
Okay, thank you. And the community center contingency was removed. Just curious why it was there and why it was removed. Ms. Torval?
Mayor, council, Ms. Haggerty, if she could provide some explanation.
To the mayor, the rest of the council, I did notice that contingency was there, and I feel like when we're doing a budget, I feel that we should be able to bring to council what we feel the need is for services, and I don't feel that we need a contingency in that area. I think if something happens during the year, I'd come back to council and then I'd ask, we need this extra money, and we do it as part of the budget amendment.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Councillor Majinski.
Thank you, Mayor. Was that contingency part of the upgrades that we're going to work on it with the front desks and the changing of the offices?
I don't believe so. I think it
We had
was
some money set aside for that, and then it was turned down.
Ms. Torval.
Mayor and council, I don't think that was part of contingency. That was part of would have been a special or a capital project.
Mhm.
I can clarify with Ms. Haggerty. Ms. Haggerty?
To mayor and rest of the council, there was money in the capital fund, I think for the capital carryover fund, that. So that's something I can bring back when I come next time, and actually it's a perfect opportunity for me to mention this. So I would like to bring the capital carryovers to council, because I also feel there's some projects that are in there from 2019, and I just need clarification. With not being here, I need to know if council still want to proceed with those. So that is surplus. That fund is surplus. So if council can go through that fund with me, then we can see if there's any money that needs to be released.
Okay, thank you for that. What, Councillor?
Oh, thank you.
We've got 2 more when you get a chance, Keith.
Okay, yep, go ahead, Councillor Howe.
On page 5 of 53, so we have a debt repayment goes on and on for about $114,000. If I'm not mistaken, the only debt that the DTR had for long-term debt was the debt to do the community center about 8 years ago. And I thought that we were very close to the point where that was going to be paid off to the MFA, I think is where the money goes to. Are we close to having that paid off, do you know? Because I actually thought that was supposed to end within our term.
Ms. Torval?
The mayor to councillor Howe, I think if my memory recalls, I think it's 2023, but I can confirm that. So we're pretty close.
I remember there was no benefit for us paying it out. The interest on it was super cheap, and it didn't make sense to pay it out because we were going to have to pay the interest anyways. So we were just letting it run out. But yeah, you know, absolutely for a 5-year plan, if it runs out in 23, it should be canceled for the few years going forward. The other question I have is just, and this is to Ms. Taggarty, and I know this is, you know, this is our first crack at it and first look at it and whatnot, but so if we're somewhere in the neighborhood of being about $500,000 short, give or take right now, how comfortable how comfortable are you on us actually collecting the 2022 draft amount of $22,370,000, give or take, when last year we had budgeted nearly $23 million that we would take in, but we only took in $18 million. We're $5 million short on what we budgeted we would take in. That's quite a discrepancy, and I assume that there's probably a lot to do with grants and whatnot that were missed. But if we missed our revenue by $5 million this year, I'm very concerned about that. Is there any way you can set my mind at ease on that?
Mr. Torkel?
Ms. Taggarty, can you?
Mayor and the rest of council, I think I am confident we can. I think there needs to be some discussions, but I think, and I talked to Mayor Bertram earlier, I think the grants do kind of, you know, we had a lot of grant money budgeted the year before, and those capital projects didn't go ahead. So sort of comparing the two, it's hard to compare the two together. If we'd done a budget amendment, it would probably be easier to see that we didn't get those grants. Yeah, I think I'm quite confident. I do want council to give me direction though on the capital carryovers and what you need me to release.
Absolutely.
And I think, I just think when I bring the surplus, the reserves and surplus back to you, I think we're sitting quite comfortably. Obviously, you know, asset management hasn't been completed, so I can't say what I think we need in asset management, but I think we have a fair bit of money in reserves and surplus.
Okay, thank you. Follow-up, Councillor?
Yeah, and maybe I'm misunderstanding you just slightly there, Ms. Taggarty. Is that, you know, if we miss this budget, if we miss revenue by $5 million, I have zero interest in us utilizing, well, we would have to, I guess, at that point, utilize reserve funds. But you know, are we, like, could the discrepancy be that much in the budget of what we should have collected and what we actually did that we may have to dip into reserve funds that extensive? You know, our reserve funds, I think the last time we looked at it, we're nearly $30 million right now, which is fantastic for going forward for assets we're going to have to fix in the future. But, you know, that is what my concern is. If we miss that budget point, I don't want us to have the impression that, oh, well, we'll just spend the money out of reserves. Am I taking that the right way?
Ms. Torval?
To the rest of council, I think maybe I'm confusing you with the capital portion. I think we do have a lot of spend on capital. We're doing a lot of things related to capital. So I think I was probably confusing with that. I agree. I think I don't want to be dipping into reserves for operational needs. But I think we have to look at the capital and the operational needs as a whole.
For sure.
And so...
Thank you.
In the past, we had been budgeting full amounts of grants before they were awarded or all of that. So the $5 million discrepancy is likely, some of it has to do with grants. Did you see any other areas of decrease in revenue to make up that $5 million?
To Mayor and rest of council, I think we're kind of recovering a little bit, because I know when I look back on the year prior, obviously the pandemic hit us. So we're fortunate to have the COVID restart grant
Mhm.
that I was able to put the remainder in for 2022. So yeah, and maybe revenues are looking down. I'm hopeful that the revenues will come back at the rec a little bit higher
Mhm.
than what I forecast.
Yeah, and you had mentioned budget amendments, so like last year, when the grant wasn't successful, if we had done a budget amendment, then we probably wouldn't have had this such a large discrepancy in revenue collected, is that correct?
Yes, that's correct, and I think that's because we don't see that. I think it kind of skews the comparison.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Question about the provincial school requisition on page 1 of 53, the total non-reporting. Actuals from the budget amount are up $500,000, but we're budgeting the same amount for this year. Just wondering why that increase, Ms. Torval?
Through to the mayor, are you looking at the 1.3?
Yes.
Said, yeah, so this split, the way that it went into our financials, it was the school and the local school and the provincial weren't split.
Oh, they're together.
Yeah, they're together.
Gotcha.
I'm not sure it's something to do with the coding.
Okay. Okay, thank you. That one missed me. I should have picked that one up.
Stay?
No, it was probably midnight. Okay. Any other questions, council? Seeing if I have another one here. So you were saying, Ms. Tegrity, that want to bring forward the capital carryover onto the 25th meeting? And that's the meeting we're planning the tax rates as well, Ms. Torval?
Yes, I believe so, yes.
Yeah. Okay, perfect.
The mayor, I have a few things to bring.
Still?
It's going to be a full meeting.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. And I suspect we may need another one afterwards. Councillor Kirby.
Thank you, Mayor Bertrand. Just a question on the community center and the programming. We see a lot of activities under youth, but on revenues, we see $10,000 coming in. I'd like to know what our cost recovery is on some of the programs that we're running. We have our summer escape program we do. We love kids' days, March break, there's activities. It's just, I know we get grants for some of it, but I'd like to see maybe a breakout of what we're actually putting in, just to see, what's coming out of the tax dollars
Mhm.
that isn't being recouped in fees.
Ms. Torval?
Ms. Taggarty.
To the mayor and Councillor Kirby, it's something that I think is a really good idea to see. I mean, I think it's amazing the programs that the recreation put on here, because my daughter goes to a lot of them. But I think, Mayor and Council, you need to see, what the cost recovery in those areas. So yeah, that's something that I will be looking at.
Yeah, and I certainly would suspect, I don't believe it's going to be a majority of cost recovery there, but it certainly will be a little bit, and it'd be nice to identify that for sure. I noticed, Ms. Torval, there's a number of accounts in pretty much every department for contracted services. Just wondering what types of contracted services we're budgeting for in every single department, and I'm wondering if it's possible to get a total on the budgeted amount for contracted services, please.
Mayor, Council, Ms. Taggarty.
Mayor and Council, yes, and that's something I can provide. That's something our dear Questica can help with. But it mainly, and explain it, I say to staff that contracted services is very important. And sometimes things get coded, materials and supplies and contracted services are kind of similar, and things get coded wrong, but I'm encouraging departments to make sure they do code to contracted services so we can see what actually goes into those codes.
Mhm.
So it would be if we brought an electrical contractor in, for instance, if our ammonia plants, that we have to get specialized staff to come in and do those repairs. So it's those kind of things.
Mhm. Absolutely.
Maybe for the HVAC or
Yes. Okay, thank you. We are budgeting a significant amount throughout the budget for that, so it would be interesting to know a total. And I think, moving towards training and succession planning, I think these contracted services budgeted amount are gonna decrease as well, because we won't have to rely on them as much, I believe. And one more for me, golf course trail fees and storage, page 3 of 53. Significant variance there. And I'm just curious why the variance, Ms. Torval.
Thank you, Mayor. Ms. Taggarty?
Sorry, page 3 of 53, trail fees and storage.
And you're bringing the budgets.
Yeah, I'm just curious on the variance there. It seems like our cart storage building is full all the time. Trail fees, we had record, I don't know if it's record, but significant revenues from the golf course, so I would assume the trail fees would increase as well. And I'm not understanding why we're 7,000 below budget there.
And that's something I probably want to bring back. I feel I have it in my binder in there, and there's a reason for it, but it's okay.
Yes, absolutely.
I'd like to bring that back.
Absolutely, thank you. Okay. Councilor Majinski.
Just on the storage, do we charge Wolverine North Mountain Society storage for all of their equipment at the end of the driving range? There's some storage sheds there, and I just don't know, because that's where like a lot of the old weight equipment was stored at one point, and there's a whole bunch of other machinery there that's not in use. I was just wondering, because maybe that's where the storage is coming from, because like maybe the cart storage is something that's just being missed here. I'm not sure. Some doesn't seem right there, but I don't know if we are doing anything. Maybe we're just doing it as a fee service for Wolverine North Mountain Society to utilize one of the sheds out there, but maybe something like that.
Ms. Torval, do you have any info on that?
Thank you, Mayor and Council. That is something that we will need to get back to Council with. Sure.
Okay, thank you. And are you aware, Ms. Torval or Ms. Taggarty, if the cart storage is recorded in a different account than the trail fees and storage?
I would be sure Ms. Taggarty.
Okay.
Members of the council, I think that's probably what has happened. So that's why I think I would like to look back at my actuals.
Perfect, thank you very much. Councilor Majinski?
It's in the same area here. Clubhouse rentals, yeah, it's at $60. Obviously, it's not cart rentals or club rentals. What else are they renting that have to have its own subsection here? It was at $7,500.
Ms. Torval?
Ms. Taggarty?
The Investor Council, I think overall, I think the coding here has to be looked at. I'm confident the budget's in the right place, but maybe the actuals are not going to the right place.
You're speaking about the clubhouse rentals, did you say?
Yeah.
So that would be the rental of the restaurant area? That likely didn't happen? Ms. Taggarty?
That's to Mayor and Council. I think that was the other thing when I was working on this. I guess because we didn't have the restaurants, I feel there was fees that we had in here in the year, and then we didn't have any actuals.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. Any other questions, concerns, comments? I'm really happy with the report, Ms. Tegerty. I think you did a fantastic job, and thank you for all your hard work on this. One thing I did want to point out that was mentioned a lot in your report, adjusted to a more accurate forecast, and I really appreciate that. Thank you. Sorry, Ms. Torval?
Sorry, Mayor and Council. Just wondering if Council wanted to discuss the library funding tonight?
Yep, I believe so. If there's no other questions or comments, we can discuss that. Councillor Howe, did you have anything else?
No, not at this time.
Okay. Yes, please, Miss Councillor Nobrey.
Thank you, Mayor Bertrand. If we're talking about the library, I need to excuse myself as
Yes.
monetary interest.
Yes, please. Just trying to find it here.
On page 6 of 53.
Thank you very much. All right. So as you all know, I sit as council liaison on the library board. We did go over the library budget, and I must say I'm very impressed with the two new board members on the library board. They bring a lot of professionalism and experience to the board, which is appreciated. We had a long discussion in regards to the requested amount of $37,000 increase. I asked the board to look at it again in order to see if there were any efficiencies that could be realized. And there weren't a lot of changes or willingness to change. The sentiment amongst the board was that this is a minimum amount in order to efficiently and effectively provide the services that they do. Ms. Torval?
Sorry for the interruption, but it appears that there are maybe a couple of councillors who don't know where you're reading from.
Oh, I'm not reading. I'm not reading.
Okay, that's fine.
Find it in the,
No, I just have the budget numbers in front of me, that's all.
sorry.
No problem. This is the public library actuals and budget that we got last meeting.
Yeah, I just didn't bring
All
it.
I'm referencing. So the request by the library was $377,093. The biggest reason or reasons for the increase was increase to minimum wage, a significant decrease to the Canada Summer Jobs Program federally, and then putting back in budgeted amounts for things that were taken out in 2021. As you recall, Mr. Durant was a board member at that time and wanted to, or voluntarily took another look at the budget and was able to make some changes there. So they have included, for example, technology replacement. They've included some more, and where is it? I think it was the training, and can't seem to find it here. Anyhow. So yeah, that was the reasoning for that. The board felt that, it isn't sustainable to rely on grant funding for some programs, so this is why they're requesting this amount. Councillor Majinski.
Thank you, Mayor. Just a question to you, I guess. You might not know the answer, but with the minimum wage increase, is that just for the minimum wage employees, or is that going to be across the board? Does everybody get a raise increase because of minimum wage, so they're offsetting everybody's wage?
I don't know what the library's plan is in that regards. A minimum wage increase is exactly that, just for the people that make minimum wage. It's really up to the organization if they want to continue that increase throughout the organization. Councillor Majinski.
Thank you. And then in their delegation, they said that they had 17 computers available to use. Is that what's currently in for the public to use, or is that in total for all staff and the public?
I honestly not sure. I would say my guesstimate would be that would be total amounts. Just going by memory, I can think of 10 that are in the library at the moment, so I'm not exactly sure. Councillor.
And was the VR unit being utilized throughout the COVID, or was it not being used? And if they had planned on getting 2, if they do have 2 or not, I didn't see anything about any of that stuff.
Yeah, I don't believe they have 2. The VR machine was off and on throughout COVID. It was very difficult to make a safety plan for that unit, and so that's the reasoning for the on and off, I believe. I did ask the board, when council set the budget last year of 340, which was approximately $40,000 to $50,000 decrease from the ask. I asked the board and the head librarian if any services or any hours of employment were lost because of that decrease, and I explained that usually when you decrease a budget significantly, you have to sacrifice some kind of a service. They did say that they were fortunate enough to secure a grant to make up that difference, so no services were lost, or wages, or employment. So their argument on the increase is grant funding isn't long-term sustainability. Councillor Majinski.
Just on employer contributions, their actuals for 2021 was almost $70,000. Their projected was 57, so that's $12K difference. And then for 2022, it's dropped down to 58,000. Do you know why it was so high, spiked, and then now they're trying to realize why they're going back to?
No, and realistically, those ratios don't seem correct to me. So these are unaudited numbers, so I'd have to look into that again, or look into it for you, Councillor.
Appreciate it.
So I'll put forward the motion that we set the library budget at $377,093 for 2022. Seconder. Councillor Kirkcalka, discussion. Councillor Kirkcalka.
Yeah, thank you. So I have some questions, and you talk about minimum wage increase. I see their budget for 2021 was estimated at 270. The actual was 200. You just spoke that they lost no services. They didn't lose any hours of operation or operational wages. They budgeted 275, 400 for 2022.
Yeah, and those answers were given to me before these actuals were presented, so that must have been a mistake. Councillor.
And just on that as well, is that they show that they budgeted in 2021 and then the actual was 45,858 for other revenue. Actual was 57,164, and they pretty much look to budget the same amount for 2022 as budgeted for 2021. Do you know what the increase was?
Grant funding, I believe. The Canada Summer Jobs was increased. I believe it's through grant funding is the increase. Any more discussion?
Yep.
Councillor Howell?
Yeah, so two things that I pick out, 2021, they budget $9,500 for computers in line of the 10,000 that they've done every year. But then they spend $16,500, so an additional $7,000 on top of their budget. Again, library materials and processing, they budget for $35,000, but spend $60,000. So if you take those two items, the $7,000 increase in computer spending and the $25,000 increase in library materials, it gives you $32,000 that they, in my mind, didn't have to spend. We don't know exactly what they spent them on, but it seems like to me they had saved some money in wages and had decided that they would make sure all the money was spent in the budget. That's what it looks like and appears like to me. They didn't have to spend money on library material and processing. So to me, that increase of $32,000 in spending that they didn't have to spend, if you take that back out, put your spending at $345,000 that would be required for funding. And that still keeps them a $10,000 budget for computer and a $35,000 budget for library materials and processing. To me, I think that at this point in the budget, I am not prepared to vote in favor of an increase to $377,000. I'm in favor or comfortable with, at this point, $340,000. But there still is a lot that remains unseen in this budget that we need to look into. Again, the elephant in the room is about $500,000 that we have to come up with at this point. So the library is, correct me if I'm wrong, Ms. Torville, is included in our budget, and it is on page what on the budget?
6 of 53.
6 of 53.
That's the old, that's,
Yeah, well, I think that's what most people have been using.
Yeah.
Sorry, whatever page.
Yeah. Yeah, and just so council knows, on the last library board meeting, there was concern from the board on what they could do to help council in any way. So I had suggested adding actuals to the budget amounts, or to the budget sheet here, because we had 5 years of budgeted amounts, but no actuals to actually show if the budgeted amounts are even valid. So the actual amounts are really important on a budget sheet to see where you're at and then forecast for the future. So I did ask for the actuals, and this is new information to me. So we haven't had a board meeting since then. So a lot of these discrepancies I'll be bringing up to the board for clarification as well. But I do appreciate them putting together these actuals, because it certainly tells a clearer picture, in my opinion. Any other comments, questions?
Can I just get staff to point out to me exactly where in our budget on page 6 the library is at?
So we've got 2 or 3 different packages here, Councillor Howe. We've got the package on today's agenda. It's on page 6 of 53 at the top, administration. It'll be under administration. And just above fiscal services. If you're in the binder, it'll be page 5.
Yeah, I have the binder. Yeah, okay, sorry, page 5.
So page 5 in administration, near the bottom, 3rd from the bottom.
Thank you.
So I tend to agree with you, Counselor Howe. I'm not sure if we're presented with all the information we need in order to make this decision, so I think a motion to defer is appropriate here. Seconder, Counselor Kirby, discussion, Counselor Kirkowka.
Just maybe we could reach back to library with staff, or if you guys, I mean, we've got actuals for 2021, but actuals for 2020 or something, and that was asked in the delegation for more actuals, not just the 1 year, but multiple years. Maybe we can get those.
I'll see what I can do, yep. Okay, Counselor Kirby.
Thank you, Mayor Bertrand. I just have one concern regarding the delegation. When they were talking about cutting funds, if they weren't gonna get the full amount, the first thing that would have to go would be the summer reading program. To me, that would be the one thing that you would wanna keep, considering it's a library. So that's another thing, is to get the right number, they have so many, as we had our report from our CAO, the soft kind of programs that they offer that really don't need to be done. And that was my concern is you know, I didn't like what they picked, what would be the first thing to go. So, you know, they do offer services that we can't provide, you know, government services, they're doing resume writing, they're doing a whole lot of other things. I do get that, and I know that there is a benefit, but, you know, just like my question to the programming at the community center, all the things that we offer, there comes at a cost. And if we have to, like you say, find money in the budget, that's one place that we can look. So I would like to see more money, like the more actuals coming back.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think the summer reading program, I think, was somewhat targeted because it's very much dependent on the Canada's Summer Jobs Program. And because that's been slashed significantly, they would need to supplement that program with operational funding. So that's where I believe if they're not getting the sufficient amount of operational funding, they wouldn't be able to supplement that program. I think that's why it was targeted.
Yeah, that's a concern, because that's a great program.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Councillor Kirkowka.
And isn't that program mainly done by a sponsorship through TD Summer Reading Program? It's paid for. I get maybe labor is not, but I know when I sat on as a member of the board, we volunteered at the Summer Reading Program launch, but it's a TD Summer Reading Program. It's like it's a sponsorship by an organization. I mean, they advertise it as a TD Summer Reading Program.
Now, I'm not 100% sure if ours is the TD Summer Reading Program.
The bags we get on our desk say TD Summer Reading Program.
Okay.
Or the package the library's so nice to hand out one to each counselor is got that on there. So just some clarity on that. Councilor Curry brings a couple of comments there in regards to resume writing and all this. We also have a college that's doing the same thing, resume writing and all that. And to me, when we assist the government in whether it's the EI stuff or CERB and all that means they don't have to come to Tumblr. So, you know, it's great that they reach out and they pick up these services, but that's the government's job again, not the taxpayers to pay for it. So maybe if we didn't do it here, the government would actually feel obligated to come and sit in the community center like the WorkSafe BC does. They come up every so often and sit in room 1. Maybe. But I know the college does a lot of that stuff too, the resume writing and stuff like that. They've advertised it quite a bit out on the boards around town. So maybe there's a bunch of people doing the same jobs over and over.
Possibly. Councillor Lehman.
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, it's, you know, these budgets, when you don't have actuals and you have a certain amount of money to spend and you always end up spending it, it's hard to justify the amount that they're asking for because you don't really, you know, you have $300,000 to spend, you spend it no matter what. So instead of spending $260, you're saving money somewhere else. And that's where the actuals come in. And the other thing is, the district is doing more and more of this, what we were just talking about, where we're actually doing services that the government should be providing, where if we keep doing it, they just won't do it. And we end up having to keep doing it. And I don't think that's right. I mean, it's a government service that they're supposed to provide. So let them provide it so that we don't have to.
Yeah. Any more comments on the deferral? Councillor Majinski?
Just one more clarification, if I may. Communications, phone and internet, is that what that stands for? Fourth from the top?
I believe so.
So the District of Jungle Ridge does not provide the phone and internet to the library, is that correct?
Ms. Torval?
Ms. Tankerty? We'd have to get back to you.
Okay,
Back to you.
okay. Follow.
Just to clarify what the communications is for that, if it is not for phone and internet that we provide for them.
Okay, I will find that out. Councillor?
And then, and if that is not the case, can we get that in our budget? What we spend on phone and internet just for the library? If it's separate from the rest of the community center,
Okay.
please.
Councillor Kirkcalka?
Yeah, maybe not to add more to staff, but maybe that, no, I get what you're doing, Councillor Majinski, and I kind of agree with you. Do we have a breakdown, like the youth center, the daycare? Like they all are in there, and my understanding at one point was the power was all paid by the district, the gas was all paid by the district. My understanding the phone and the internet was, and I'm not saying it is on the library side, but the other one, so does that get separated by organization that are within the community center? If we just ask staff, if not, maybe there's a way to find that out. But if it's not split down in the bill, I think it'll be very hard for staff to figure that out.
Yeah, absolutely. Ms. Torval?
Thank you, that's a very good question to raise there, Councillor Koroka. Ms. Tankerty, do you have any insight? That or should we?
I feel like I know most bills, but I'm feeling like that one is probably lumped together, but I would like to go back to the bills really, get clarity.
Certainly. Yeah. Okay, any other comments on the deferral? Or any other questions you'd like me to find out on? Okay, call the question on the deferral. All in favor? Opposed?
Opposed?
Thank you. Carried. Yes, please. Okay, any other questions or comments on the operational budget? Correct me if I'm wrong, Ms. Torval, that the library was the only one that we were needed to pull out, is that correct?
That is.
Thank you. Okay. Any other questions? Councillor Lehman?
Thank you, this may be a silly one, but what's Site 18 contracted services for $99,000?
Site 18, Ms. Torval?
Sorry, Mayor and Council, Site 18 was the development of the school. for HD.
HD mining development? Sorry, which page?
53.
That was, Ms. Torval, would you happen to know what those contracted services were for? Because I do recall there being some groundwork done, but I thought that was remediation that they were responsible to do. I didn't feel that we had to pay for that.
Yeah, Ms.
Store.
Tankerty can give you a full explanation on that one.
To Mayor and Council, I can't confirm exactly what the work was, but I can confirm it was billed back. So there's a corresponding revenue for Site 18 in the budget. So it's a wash.
Gotcha. Thank you. Okay. Other questions, concerns? Well, again, Ms. Tegerty, thank you very much for all your hard work and extra hours put in to put this package together for us. A lot of information, a lot of good questions by council tonight too. Thank you very much. And I think we're going to need to sit on this one for a little bit and digest it a little bit more. Very much looking forward to the next one though. Carryovers. I want to see carryovers. Right, Ms. Troilo, any questions by email?
Hands down.
Thank you. Adjournment of the open. Recommendation, please. Councillor Lehman.
Make a motion to adjourn regular meeting, special council meeting of April 11th.
Thank you. Seconder. Councillor Kirby. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you.